Alright, so today in this video we're going to be discussing the difference between active range of motion, passive range of motion, and resisted range of motion, and what the difference is between the three. So let's go ahead and dive into this material. First, we need to understand exactly what range of motion assessments are. Range of motion assessments is a hands-on evaluation that is utilized to measure a client's range of motion in any given joint. This gives a therapist the ability to assess the client's area or areas of concern. This is typically the area that is giving the client the most problems, usually in the form of pain. From this assessment, the client should be able to create a treatment plan for their client. The treatment plan will consist of the areas the therapist will work on, perhaps the muscles that are responsible for the movement during range of motion. Now, before the therapist proceeds with the treatment plan, there must be informed consent. This means that the therapist and the client must come to an agreement, and the client will then give the therapist permission to proceed with the treatment plan. Today, we will assess the range of motion of our client's glenohumeral joint. This is our client's shoulder through its full range of motion during abduction at the glenohumeral joint. Now, real quick, I want to give a quick shout out of appreciation to my little brother for helping me with this video. He was kind enough to be my model and showing you guys the different assessments of range of motion. Also, real quick, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to this YouTube channel and or sharing this video. This really helps us reach and help more students studying and preparing for their exam. With all that being said, let's go ahead and get started. The very first one we are going to cover is active range of motion. This is known as AROM. This is a range of motion in which the client actively moves the joint through its full range of motion. The key word here is active. The client actively moves the joint through its full range of motion. This means that the therapist only instructs the client to move the joint through the joint's full range of motion. In other words, the client moves the joint through its full range of motion by themselves with no help from the therapist. Next, we have passive range of motion, PROM. This is a range of motion assessment in which the therapist passively moves the client's joint through its range of motion. The key word is passive. The therapist passively moves the joint through its full range of motion. This means that the therapist is the only one moving the client's joint through its full range of motion. In other words, the client relaxes while the therapist moves the joint through its full range of motion without any help from the client. Now, lastly, make sure you pay attention here because it gets kind of confusing. We have resisted range of motion, also known as RROM. This is a range of motion in which the therapist resists using an isometric hold. The key word here is resisted. The therapist is applying a resisted force, therapist resists, against the client's movement. Now, let me explain this. This is a range of motion assessment that assesses the strength of the muscle responsible for a certain movement. In this case, abduction at the glenohumeral joint. Now, there are two ways that I can do this. I can either instruct my client to abduct at the glenohumeral joint and I resist that movement by applying an isometric hold, or I can instruct my client to hold their arm in place. They are responsible for the isometric hold or contraction, while I attempt to resist the arm with a force in the opposite direction. And this is also known as muscle testing, the assessment of whether the muscles that move a joint through its full range of motion are weak or strong. We are likely familiar with this. When we've seen doctors make someone squeeze his fingers or push against his hand, the doctor is muscle testing. Now, in active, passive, and resisted range of motion assessments, it's important that the therapist makes sure to identify any pain or weakness when evaluating these assessments. However, range of motion testing patterns and results are outside the scope of this video, but I would encourage you to dive into your textbooks and look up the different patterns and results for muscle testing. Now, I have to be careful with saying this. I'm not 100% sure, but I do not believe that the range of motion patterns and results will be on the MBLEx. I would argue those fall more under continuing education, more specifically medical massage therapy. But if this is something that interests you, I would encourage you to become certified in medical massage therapy as soon as you are a licensed massage therapist. However, again, I am not 100% sure that they will be on the MBLEx. I do not have access to this exam. This is a guess of mine, but I always tell my students, if it is in your textbooks, then it is up for grabs on the MBLEx. So whatever your textbook says, make sure you are reviewing that, reading and studying those materials, and make sure you understand that before you go into the MBLEx. Now, you will need to make sure that you understand what active range of motion, passive range of motion, and resisted range of motion are. Those concepts you are more than likely to see on the MBLEx for sure. Remember that client assessment, reassessment, and treatment planning are going to be 17% of the MBLEx. That means that there will be 17 questions out of 100 that will cover materials like we covered just now. So make sure you know this stuff. As always, feel free to reach out to me. You can find my email in the About Me section of our YouTube channel. Also, we have courses and study resources on the Teachable platform. Make sure to check those out if you haven't already. Make sure you take advantage of the 100 multiple choice practice questions that I created for free of charge. And also, there are hard copy resources available on the Etsy account that will help you better prepare for the MBLEx. If you found this video helpful, please consider donating. You can find a donation link in the About Me section of our YouTube channel. This helps me to continue creating awesome content for all of you. No amount is too small to give. These small measures of appreciation help me significantly. And if you've already donated this month to your favorite charitable cause, consider donating next time, okay? Y'all have a wonderful week ahead, and I will see y'all in the next video. Y'all take care.
Okay. Very good. No pain. Is it good?
It was a bit funny.
Okay. Go back down. All right, so now come up a little bit. All right. Hold on, relax. Keep your arm straight. Keep your arm straight. Keep your arm straight. Straighten your arm. Straight. Okay. Ready? Now push up. Pull up.
Stop. Stop.
Okay, good. You don't have to push hard, but relax.